You alright, Dad?
Very good.
Right, okay. Right, so what we're going to do today, this is something new. I said that we'll do I'll do an interview with yourself. Obviously, this is a little bit of experience for me because I've never done interviewing people properly before, so I thought, why not? Let's do it. Do you know what I mean, Dad?
Okay. Yeah.
All right, Dad. So, what I'm going to start off with is, if you could just give me if you could give the audience and all the listeners that are going to tune into this video a brief summary on where you're from,
Yeah.
where you grew up,
Yeah.
right, and what you've done for a living most of your life up until now, and obviously you could briefly just hash on, do you know what I mean, you know, your kids and whatnot, just to give a little insight into who you are and what you're about.
Yeah.
So
sure. Okay.
yeah. So yeah, carry a few. Go from there, Dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I'm Rick Baker, formerly Richard Arthur Baker, and to give you a little insight into that, I was named after my great-grandfather on my father's side. He was a steam engineer in India, as once upon a time India was one of the British Isles colonies, and he was very good at his job. He used to be able to, it was said, listen to the sound of a steam engine and tell you exactly what was wrong with it. So he was that good, and he was much sought after as obviously the British Empire rolled out the railways in India, and probably one of their greatest gifts to the world, actually, the railways. I was born in India. My father was in the Navy and my mother was a nurse. My dad was from what was then Bombay, and mum was from Kerala, and I was born in what was then Madras. But I didn't stay in India very long. I think I was about 2 weeks old when my parents emigrated. They planned on it for a little while. Had all my shots early as I was a big baby. Some people might say I'm still a big baby, I'm not sure. But by the time we arrived in the UK, I was about 2 months old. Plan being, Dad was going to get a career in the steel industry in Sheffield. Things changed, however, though, and they decided that they would stay in the south of England rather than the north. This being that there was family already here, and we'd have at least somebody to go to if we had any issues. Subsequently, Dad also got a career in the railways. He worked for British Rail, as it was then, for over 25 years. And Mum stayed home most of that time to raise a family. I'm the second eldest of 5. I had an older brother that unfortunately we lost during the COVID pandemic, or the China flu, whichever you want to call it. But I also have 2 sisters and a brother, all younger than me. I'm the second of 5. Now, most of my life I have been a bus driver. So once again in the service industry, just coming up 30 years I've been a bus driver. Did go away and do other little things in between, so I haven't led a completely sheltered life. And recently, just under 3 years ago, after doing a contract work for a bus agency, I moved to the north of England to the town of Blythe in Northumberland. And whilst I was there, I met somebody at the bus garage, very nice lady, decided to stay, made Blythe my home, and since then I've been very active in the local community. Obviously things changed in England with Brexit and with leaving the European Union, which I agreed, which I voted for. I believe it was UKIP and then the Brexit Party. But as a lot of people my age and younger and older all discovered that there was no political will to carry out Brexit, which was infuriating, absolutely infuriating. The majority of people wanted it and we weren't getting it. We couldn't understand why all the political parties that were in power seemed to want to demonise what the British people had voted for. In short, they were out of touch with the British public. And being one of those British public, I was frustrated, continuously frustrated that they wouldn't do something. And then with successive parliaments and successive governments, we saw a decline in our living standards, in the way we were being treated, and the general disrespect from the ruling classes that the nation was receiving. When Nigel Farage, via the now renamed Reform Party, asked for help, asked for our help, asked for the regular, ordinary people's help, it was refreshing. Somebody in politics actually wanted to know what the people of the UK wanted and valued our opinion on what we wanted. And it was a clarion call, and I answered that call along with hundreds and hundreds of other people up and down the country. We saw an opportunity in Reform to have a real people's party, something that Labour used to be once upon a time and sadly lost their way somewhere along the lines and became a North London elitist party. Reform, now being the natural heir to that, seemed a good fit for a lot of people. They were saying the kind of things that we wanted to hear. They were listening to us, and that was attractive to a lot of people, still is. And I see a future with Reform. And after the elections of May 2025, where we returned over 600 regular people just like me to local office in the local elections, it seems like the nation wants us to. And we seem to be growing from strength to strength. That's a positive thing, I think, because the nation needs to listen to its people. And I believe that we in Reform are the voice of the people. And so here I now find myself being interviewed by my son, who is now the citizen journalist of the family. I'm very proud of him. I'm very proud what he's been doing with the X space that he's created. As you can see on his t-shirt, the Uncensored Patriots. And I'm proud and very happy to be answering some questions today from people from the group. So,
who's been nattering you? Who's been going on at you for so long to get into politics, though?
This person here.
Why has it taken so long?
Because I guess, like most people, I fell into a bit of a rut. I thought this was my lot, you know. Yes, had very strong political views.
Yeah.
Had thoughts of it all my life. Had ideas about how the country should be, could be, you know, possibilities. It was exciting. But also felt that that was for those politicians. It wasn't for the likes of people like me, until I finally got my head round it through your help, that actually politics is everyone's business.
Yeah.
And the further and further the career politicians, shall we say, moved away from regular people, the more frustrating it became for me sitting on the sidelines and doing nothing. And doing nothing suddenly wasn't an option. And then when Nigel Farage asked for the regular people's help, I'd kind of run out of excuses. So with my frustration and your prompting, full credit, I decided to raise my head above the parapet and have a go.
See, Dad used to see. Everyone knows that Dad came into the X space, into the Uncensored Patriots X space, prior to him going and campaigning as a Reform candidate, as a councillor. You came on there for quite a while to speak to people, and yeah, it's quite interesting actually, Dad, that you've just gone from just, you know, being in the space to just talking and stuff, and then obviously you've finally took the plunge and gone and campaigned and actually been elected twice.
Well, you know, as I said, I had motivation from you, lots of encouragement from people on the space as well. Great people, by the way, lovely people, and not all like-minded people. Lots of people differing views, but that's what the UK is. Where, you know, we've got differing views, and you know, we should be allowed to express those differing views and have open, honest debate about those views. We can't progress as a society unless we do. So the refreshing thing about the X space that Sean here has created is that it was an island or an oasis of differing thought coming together and being discussed openly, honestly, respectfully, and without judgment.
Yeah.
Very, very attractive, and I was happy to join in and initially support Sean and what he was doing, as were other people on the space that you've made very, very successful. And I'm kind of glad to say that when I had my official political awakening, it was done with the backdrop of the Uncensored Patriots coming along for the ride with me. So I appreciate my son obviously getting me into that, and I appreciate the Uncensored Patriots in coming along for the ride with me and following my journey into local politics.
Sweet. So I've got a couple of questions. Obviously, I know this is not going to be like an overly drawn out interview, as obviously we're just testing the waters for now. And obviously I haven't got much experience in doing interviews, so this is good practice for me, Dad. Mm-hmm. So, I was just going to say to you, the recent events that has just happened within regards to the Labour councillor Ricky Jones, and the outcome of his verdict in court when they found him not guilty, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm really, really, really angry about. When the news came out that he was found not guilty, and then that was it. Bearing in mind for what he actually did in public at a rally, calling for all far right protesters' throats to be cut, right, on camera. And I can't get my head around that, because obviously if you're caught on camera in public and it's everywhere and everyone's seen it, then it shouldn't regard, irrespective of what the plea is, whether you plead guilty or not guilty. If you're caught bang to rights, then surely that's considered a slam dunk for the court. Surely that should be, do you know what I mean? you are there on video
Absolutely.
for all to see.
Yeah, I entirely agree with that statement. Ricky Jones, well, how he is still in the position that he's in, he has not been disciplined by the party, to my knowledge. He's still a councillor, to my knowledge. And once upon a time, there used to be something about ethics and morality if you were taking public office and you were in public life. And if a scandal as big as this came up, you would simply resign. You would acknowledge the fact that you've disgraced and you've dishonoured yourself and your party and the people that you represent, and you would excuse yourself from public office. But not today. We seem to live in a very, very entitled society that thinks they can get away with anything, do anything, and unfortunately that extends to some of our local politicians as well. And this case with Ricky Jones is a perfect example of that. How somebody has the brass neck to stand in front of a large gathering of people, being filmed, having his every comment and his every phrase, immortalised on film, if you like, and then to still be able to hold office after publicly calling for let's just be frank about it, the murder, the murder of councillors, MPs that were, in his opinion, far right, and then drawing his finger across his throat as if to say these people should have their throats slit, and then indeed, if there was any uncertainty about that, clarifying that by actually saying they ought to have their throats cut, is an act of verbal violence, and it should have been taken as a serious threat to life, and he should not only have been expelled from his party, but after that ridiculous farce of a court appearance, should be languishing in prison right now.
Yeah, I agree, because irrespective, of the outcome, if that was me, right, and I went out and I done exactly what he did, even if I pled not guilty, I'd be banged up in years for prison for it.
Yes.
Fact. Which is what leads me on to saying that the left are far more protected than the right.
Yeah, unfortunately that does seem to be the case at the moment. If you are part of Starmer's Britain, then you pretty much have a get out of jail free card, literally, right now. And Ricky Jones is the proof of that. As are other various, despicable acts committed by other Labour MPs.
Now, listen, do you personally believe that they've deliberately gave him not guilty on purpose because they want to spark outrage amongst the British people, and evidently they want the British people to go out, cause mass riots, so they could then go out, nick everyone, put them all in prison, and then roll out digital ID?
Right. Okay, there is a theory behind this, that there is a bigger agenda.
Yeah.
And
I believe there is.
Yeah, I mean, classic...
15-minute cities.
Yeah.
Digital IDs. Yeah. Social credit score.
Yeah. I think the ultimate thing is that they're trying to do, this is the left are trying to do.
No more money. Also,
try and discredit conservatism.
yeah,
Try and discredit that way of life to such a point that they then have the so-called valid argument for doing away with it altogether and forcing everyone to accept their version of socialism. It's a takeover bid, pure and simple. And if they can discredit the right far enough to a point where it's criminalised to even think right, then the right is done for.
thought crimes.
Absolutely. It's Orwellian, but it seems to be coming true right now.
We're back in 1984.
1984, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it may be overused statement, but it fits the facts. It does fit the facts. We're in a horrible position with the government at the moment. You can't think the wrong way, according to them. You can't say the wrong things, according to them. And you can't behave in the wrong way, according to them. Once again, it's their interpretation of what right and wrong is. And as long as they've got the power to interpret that, the right is in trouble. The nation is in trouble. We are in trouble. Because if we can't get fair trials, if we can't get fair hearings, if we can't have freedom of speech just to say things or discuss them even, or as in the case of certain language even, be able to use our own words to describe how we feel or how we want things to change, then we have totalitarianism and the right is completely sunk. Regular people are going to lose, and before you know it,
all we're going to be left with is nationalism and violence.
We'll be a slave nation, basically.
Yeah.
But this is the WEF influence.
Of course it is. Klaus Schwab.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as long as they're pulling the strings of puppets like our Prime Minister, the situation's only going to get worse.
100%. 100%. Right, we're going to move on to questions, Dad.
Right.
So, these are some questions from the community, the Uncensored Patriots. I'm going to start off with the first one.
Okay.
It's from Hamster.
Hello, Hamster.
Right. Have you considered joining Ben Habib's Advance UK? If not, what do you think of Ben Habib and Advance UK?
Okay, first part of that question, have I considered joining Ben Habib? The short answer is no. No, I haven't. Some people consider Reform to be a party in its infancy. That would make Ben Habib's party a party that is still the twinkle in somebody's eye, in Ben Habib's eye maybe. It's nowhere near developed enough to actually be even called a party, as far as I'm concerned. And let's be frank, let's be honest about this. They say a week is a long time in politics. Well, I put it to you that between now and the official date of 2029, when our next election is to be held, and let's hope to God it's a lot sooner than that, the only credible force on the right now, is Reform. The only party that is set up to seriously tackle Labour is Reform. So let's not split the vote on the right. Let's not do that. I've got a lot of respect for Ben Habib and what he's done in the past, but we do not want to be splitting the vote on the right at this time. We need to be all getting behind Reform. Let's get rid of Labour first and discuss the detail of which version of the right we need to have, making themselves most vocal. And I'm sure there is a place for Ben Habib in future government, if he wants it and if he can make certain concessions.
Thanks, Hamster. Second question is from Jay.
Oh, Jay.
What level of hostility have you had from other civil servants from the left?
Civil servants particularly?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as some of you may or may not know, I'm a town councillor in Blythe, but I'm also a county councillor for Northumberland. Now, the county council is run by civil servants uh, who all have a very, very strong left leaning. And let's see how that's transpired into their treatment of the new party, the New Kids on the Block, Reform. We've been stifled with new equipment that hasn't been issued to any of the other parties, that doesn't seem to work very well. I'm talking about personal electronic equipment like tablets, like mobile phones, that we seem to be repeatedly going back to the tech department to have fixed or tweaked. Now, none of the other councillors are having this issue, it's just us, because we're the only ones that have this new equipment. Constantly has to be repaired or tweeted or tinkered with in some way. That's one thing. The second thing is that historically, our job as a councillor was to listen to the electorate in our wards, take on casework based upon that, and then we would be the go-betweens between the council and the electorate. So they come to us with an issue, we go to the council, we'd find the relevant department, say, right, okay, we've got this person here, they've got a problem with, say, housing, you're the officer in charge of housing, I'm giving you this case file, and here are the outcomes that we'd like to see. That suddenly has disappeared. As soon as they got wind that Reform were coming in, they moved the goalposts. And what we have now is we have this extra layer of bureaucracy that we now have to filter everything that we get through this intermediary system, you know, and rather than talk to directly the department or the person that we want, we have to give it to a handling department who then sit on it for about 10 days roughly, and they say, thank you for that, councillor, we'll pass that on to the relevant department, relevant section, relevant person, and then we will come back to you. So they've actually created an extra layer of bureaucracy just for us. And this is how the civil service are stifling us. So whereas before you may come to me with a problem, say about housing, I should be able to get you an answer from the relevant department within a few days. Now it's taking at least 2 weeks before we can even get an answer back saying, no, nobody's going to help you. Before anyone says they could help you, it might be a month later. And by that time, as you know, in a housing issue or something that's urgent, that's an awful long time for somebody to be waiting around for an answer.
There's too much overlapping.
Absolutely. And the extra layers of bureaucracy they're putting in are designed and aimed at the new party, at Reform, in order to slow us down, make us look less efficient, and make us look like, you know, the incumbents are the ones that you should go to because they know how it works.
But not only that,
we don't.
But not only that, Dad. There's obviously there's too many job roles overlapping in Parliament, which, as you said, carries a lot more bureaucracy, but therefore it's a lot more waste on money.
Absolutely.
And spending.
Absolutely. And, you know, there seems to be no end to the amount of money that Labour and the civil service can spend. And in fact, if they're not spending enough, they'll create new departments to spend even more on our behalf. And let's face it, you know, you've got to understand that none of this money is theirs. And it's awfully easy to spend other people's money, isn't it?
Yeah, cool. Taxpayer, yeah.
And the other people's money is our money. It's our money that they're spending. And they don't seem to have any problem with doing that whatsoever. And as Margaret Thatcher famously once said, the only problem with the left, you know, is that they're very happy to spend other people's money because they know it's not theirs.
Facts. Facts.
And you know, the only problem they have is when it runs out.
Yeah. Right. Third question, Dad. Right. This is from Jagless.
Hi, Jackless.
How do you think we will be able to overcome ECHR rules to allow deportations to happen?
Okay. Well, I'm a strong believer in the fact that we should no longer be in the ECHR. The European Convention on Human Rights does not work for this nation anymore. The whole point of having Brexit is that we could self-govern. We would no longer be ruled by Brussels, by the unelected Europhiles that are currently ruining the rest of the continent. We should be governing ourselves. And yet, somehow, we're still attached to this ECHR. So, to answer your question, we need to get out of the ECHR. We created the Magna Carta back in the day. You know, a lot of our principles, the founding fathers of the United States used to create the Constitution. You know, we have a lot of savvy in this country. We should be creating our own rules and our own laws and not be reliant on those of Europe. That's how we progress. That's how we move forward.
Brilliant. Okay, this one's from Stu MC.
Hi, Stu.
When I was doing a public service degree as part of the law element, we visited Parliament as a group and got access to a room with 3 MPs. 1 Labour, 1 Conservative and 1 Lib Dem. I told them of my aspirations to become an independent MP in the future and asked them what life in Parliament would be like for me. Independent MP in future and asked them what life in Parliament would be like for me. Right. And all 3 of them laughed. I told them I was serious and asked them again. They told me that people would listen, but I would be taken more seriously if I was part of one of the main parties. Have things changed since their attempt to discourage me? And what challenges do you face being independent?
Right, Stu. The short answer is that, unfortunately, it's not one you want to hear, is that things haven't changed an awful lot. As you can see, and as you can see by those 3 elected officials' response to your very, very serious question, they think that you and a lot of the general public are laughable. They think they're so above us that we're to be looked down upon with disdain and mocked for even thinking such a thing. So you're not allowed to think. That's not part of your remit. You're there to do their bidding. And they seem to forget somewhere along the lines that they only have a job because they've been elected by you and me. And somewhere along the lines they forgot that. But the actual fact that they laughed at your question just proves what disdain they have for the public and the general public at large. Independents do exist, but, however, generally speaking, they tend to be people that have been or were affiliated with one of the major parties initially and then have broken away and become independent. There are exceptions to that rule, of course. There are independent MPs and there are independent councillors as well. However, without the backing of a large party behind you, you do find it very, very difficult to get anything done politically. So you generally have to find yourself affiliating with one of the big parties on different issues, depending upon which one has the issue closest to yourself. So it's not impossible, but it is really, really difficult.
Edward, has anyone tried to corrupt you? It's a bit stark, but he wanted to ask it.
Okay, it's stark, but it's also, I would have liked that to be maybe a little bit more specific in exactly what he meant by corrupt. Has anyone tried to corrupt me? I'm guessing you mean, has anybody maybe approached me to ask me to do something for them that I shouldn't be doing, in a political sense? I'm guessing that's the inference I'm getting from the question. If it is, the short answer to that is no. I've had nobody try to corrupt me. Perhaps I'm not important enough, or perhaps I'm not saying enough of the right things to be perhaps somebody wanting to corrupt me. But certainly at local politics at this level, I've not been approached in any shape, form, or description by somebody that wanted to corrupt me or my views, for that matter.
That's that one. All right. This one's from Catriona.
Hi, Catriona.
If you could choose your top 3 to 4 cabinet members from throughout British history, who would they be and why?
Okay. Top cabinet members. Right. Okay. This is a tricky one, and obviously my answers will.
This is throughout British history.
Yeah, my answers will be obviously dependent upon the time that in history that they were and what it was they were trying to achieve and what they were trying to do. I've got to say, top of the list is Churchill. Sir Winston.
Good old Winnie. Good old Winnie. Get up there.
Sir Winston Churchill. Yeah, I mean, basically, Churchill's political life was dogged. It was a very checkered political career. He spent a lot of time in the wilderness. But when the moment was right for his type of politics, i.e. during the Second World War, he was absolutely the right man in the right space of time for the right job. I doubt very seriously without him if this country would have had the same result that we did achieve during the Second World War. His leadership skills were absolutely beyond reproach during that time. And let's remember that during wartime, the Prime Minister is Prime Minister of a coalition government. They're made up of members from all sides of the political spectre. So not only was he trying to defeat the Axis powers, the evil powers that had taken over Europe and then later on large chunks of the rest of the world, but he probably had a lot of stick coming from the people within his own cabinet, because obviously they were from different sides of the political divide. Ultimately, you know, he herded these sheep together. He formed a really effective and powerful government that led to this country successfully winning the Second World War. So, as far as I'm concerned, he would have to go top. The fact that as soon as the Second World War ended, he was sort of unceremoniously sidelined speaks more about our politics than it does about our sort of respect for great wartime leaders like Churchill. I think, secondly, and I don't know how people are going to take this, but I grew up during the Thatcher era. And Margaret Thatcher was kind of a divisive character. I think people either admired her or they loathed her, depending upon which side of the political spectrum you were. But as time has gone by, her legacy has become more and more relevant. First off, let's not beat around the bush. She definitely was one of the greatest leaders this country has seen. I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but she was. And like Churchill, she negotiated a very difficult war that we had in the South Atlantic, war, the fight for the Falkland Islands, which she did excellently, with power, with courage, with grace. down to her leadership, a lot more people than any other time in previous history actually got to own their own home, which, you know, they say that every man's home is his castle. Well, she enabled more Brits to have their own castle, yeah, and that was another huge achievement. Flip side of that, of course, yes, I understand there was all the poll tax that was deeply unpopular, and there was the closing of the coal mines and the pits, which kind of soured the entire north of England against the Tory party for a long time, and it took a long time for them to get their heads around it. In fact, a lot of people still haven't got their heads around it. One thing she did always say, though, she would do what was right for the country, whether that was the bitter pill, as she would call it, you know, the medicine that we needed. And she wasn't worried about being popular either. Her ethos was, I am here as the Prime Minister to do what was right for the country. And like her all over, she did actually do exactly that. She did what she thought was in the country's best interest. Not for personal political gain, because I don't think that entered her head. She wasn't worried about being popular or unpopular. She just wanted to get the job done and get the job done as most effectively as possible. So I have a lot of admiration for her. And as I said, as time goes by, a lot more people are coming around to that thought as well. Who else? Sorry, there was 4, did you say?
Yes, you've done Churchill, Thatcher, and you've got 2 more.
Okay. Right. Okay. Well, I'm not sure how this is going to go down.
You could just give 1 more.
Yeah. Okay.
It was 3/4, so just
3/4. Okay. All right. Sorry, can we take a pause there, because
yeah, of course. Of course.
I'm a little bit tired still. And
No, that's right.
But I'll definitely come back to that one.
That's right. Okay, so last question.
Yeah.
Okay, this is from Moxie.
Hi, Moxie.
Right. What are your thoughts on your son creating the Uncensored Patriots movement? And how do you think the UK can balance protecting free speech with maintaining national security and public order, especially with increasing online censorship?
Wow, that's a really
I thought that was a brilliant question.
Strong, powerful question.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Uncensored Patriots are absolutely fantastic, you know. But then I would say that, wouldn't I? So some people might say, and especially saying he's
not being biased. He's not being biased just because he's my dad. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and the fact that my son is actually asking the question.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, not being affected by that whatsoever. But there needs to be more forum for openness, transparency. We seem to be having very little of that from the government. They seem to be closing that down at a time when it should be expanding. We need desperately to be able to discuss openly and without fear of retribution what's going on in our country. We should be able to have a civil discussion about the way the country is heading without fear of having our doors knocked on late at night and being dragged out of our beds by the politicised police. We shouldn't be able to fear making a comment online that we're suddenly going to be delivered with 31 months in jail because of those comments. It should be taken for what it is. It's a comment, it's online. We've swung far too far to the left, in my opinion. If you can be policed for having what they call an improper thought, it worries me. It absolutely scares the living daylights out of me, where if you take a natural extrapolation of that line, where the country will be a year, 2 years, 5 years from now. The short answer is it can't It can't be allowed to get any further along that line, because that would lead to anarchy. The people in the streets would rise up against it. The people in the streets are who the government should be looking after and respecting, and not penalising for being able to have a free thought. We need freedom of speech, we need freedom of thought, and we need it now. If our good neighbours in the Americas, people like Trump, people like J.D. Vance, can openly come to this country and say what the people are feeling and take the pulse and the mood of the nation with greater clarity than our own politicians, then our own politicians need to be getting themselves in check and asking them what the hell they're doing, because they've got it wrong. They've got it seriously wrong, and without a free nation, what are we? And I think we all know the answer to that. We're just weft puppets. Unfortunately, that's where our current Prime Minister wants us to be.
Facts, 100%. Dad, thanks for that.
No.